research as well in sustainable design. So I think you'll really learn a lot hearing from her. I think two more of our mentors are here, Nisha and Javier. So if you guys could both briefly introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name is Nisha, and I'm currently a senior studying at Brown University in Rhode Island. And I am studying computer science right now with a specialization in artificial intelligence and security, and have also spent a lot of time, coaching different entrepreneurship programs as well as going through various incubators myself. So, specifically in terms of any technical problems or just in general like ideation problem solving, finding the gap in the market, those kinds of different problems that you might run into, I'm here to help out, and just also just to bounce ideas off of or listen to for any of your needs.
Great, thank you so much. Javier, if you could hear us.
Hi, good morning. Sorry, I just stepped out of the shower. Good morning, everyone. Great to be part of the event. I work for Genesis Advanced Technology, where I work with, whenever we have new ideas, I prototype them to basically try to determine as soon as possible if they're going to work, and if not, where we need to improve them. So I do a lot of 3D printing and prototyping, and then we also do a lot of testing with those prototypes to get some early data to figure out if we want to patent them. And if they are something we want to patent, then I also take care of patent protection. Definitely, we got to take care of our planet. So I'm really excited about participating in Ecothon and love seeing new ideas. So I'm excited to work with all of you. If you guys have questions, particularly if they have to do with mechanisms or physics, I'd love to give feedback on that. Also, I'm currently mentoring a robotics team and have learned a lot about how to help teams work together. So yeah, glad to help out there as well.
Also, just for your information, many years ago, Javier designed a sustainable house for a one-room school located in the Sanjay Gandhi National Forest, just east of Mumbai. And the school was made to be designed using just local bamboo and jute. And actually, it was actually implemented, was actually built. So he has some history with sustainable housing.
That's right. And one of the biggest challenges with that was not the design itself, or even necessarily the construction, but really the collaborative efforts of getting information about the local environment, figuring out what materials we have locally, and figuring out, really understanding the problem from that perspective, and then also really getting buy-in from the local village that we were helping. But I think once we were all on the same page and they realized that we were really trying to help them and not trying to I guess take advantage of them, they really took ownership, and the villagers themselves were the ones who constructed it. So that was really powerful to see the buy-in that they had for that project.
Yeah, it's great to hear. Yeah, so please, our mentors will all be helping teams out, and ask them whatever questions you have. They're all extremely capable and can definitely be of a lot of help to you guys. Hi, I think we have Rohit, Baldwin, and Vidya joining our meeting. Sorry if I butcher any of your names. Dia, right. Okay, that's just
Thank you, Trey. Thank you so much.
Welcome, Captain Bajaj.
Thank you, Shivi.
So if you can, please turn on your videos. It would be really great to have see all your faces, and welcome, Mr. Bajaj. We really look forward to your introduction. Oh, and hello, Brian. It's great to see you here. Again, if you can, please do turn on your videos if we can. It would be really great if all of us could see each other's faces. So Baldwin, Brian, do you wanna tell us a little bit about yourselves? Why you joined Ecothon?
Sure. So my name is Baldwin and I'm from the American International School of Dhaka. So the reason I joined Ecothon was because I thought that because I've never got myself involved in any of these processes. So I thought by joining this event and collaborating with other students that are enthusiastic about this, I feel like I would learn a lot and get a lot from it and also introduce myself to this field of designing, which I'm not really used to.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. Brian, if you want to quickly introduce yourselves, or if you could hear us. Okay. If please, if you do have any questions, any of you, either just chat it in the general chat, or you can private message me, Shivy, or Peter, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. We want to make this as smooth of an experience for you as we can. Hi, Jean and Cynthia. Let me know if I'm pronouncing your names wrong. If you could turn on your cameras, that would be great. We would really love to see all of your faces. Thanks for turning on your cameras. So Rania and Cynthia, am I pronouncing both of your names right? Okay. Rania, could you tell us a little bit about yourselves and why you joined Ecothon?
So I go to AISD and I am a junior right now, and I'm doing the IBDP program. So the reason why I joined Ecothon was because I figured I'd find more people like me. Like, I'm really interested in change making and working with others around my age to build solutions for current world problems. So I figured Ecothon might be a great start for that.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, we really look forward to any of the ideas you can create, and it's great to hear that there's so many people like us that want to really affect change in the world. So Cynthia, could you tell us a little bit about yourselves, why you joined Ecothon?
Oh, I'm Cynthia. I'm in 11th grade. I'm a Chinese student living in Singapore, and I joined Ecothon because I really like sustainable architecture. So I thought that Ecothon would be a good opportunity to learn more about the topic.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Cynthia, and thank you all of you for joining this event. And we know that you will have a great time connecting with people from around the world and really creating a lot of ideas in this field of sustainable design, which I feel like, in my opinion, there's a lot of opportunity for young people like us to affect change and create innovative new solutions. So if you're just joining, please turn on your camera. We'd love to see your faces, and we will be starting with the introduction from Mr. Bajaj in a couple minutes. Or you just start that now. It seems like a lot of people are joining now. Shivi, think we should start that now?
Yeah, all right. Peter, can we begin? Okay. Greetings to our dear friends from around the world. We are so excited to have you here today. Welcome to Ecothon 2021. How are we doing? I'm a little bit nervous, but I read somewhere that nervousness and excitement are similar feelings, and you can trick your mind into believing nerves are excitement by doing something very simple, saying, I'm excited. So, well, I'm excited. My name is Shivi Anand, and I go to 11th grade at Pathway School, Gurgaon, India. Before we start, I want to thank our partners for the event. Our partners are Sparkathon Building Bridges and Pathway School, Gurgaon. Sparkathon Building Bridges is a similar organization to Ecothon, but they're a little bit larger and they have a bit more experience. This is our first time. They've helped us out so much with the format, with a lot of documents, and we're really grateful to have them as a partner. We also have Pathway School Gurgaon, that's the school that I go to, and today our opening speaker, we have my dear school director. He is an inspiration to all the students at my school, some of whom are here today. Hi, Rishabh, Taran, Soumya, all from Pathways Gurgaon. I'm not sure actually about Gurgaon, but they're all from Pathways. And so now on to our opening speaker. To me, he is a role model. Please welcome the school director of Pathway School Gurgaon, Captain Rohit Sen Bajaj.
Thank you so much, Shivi, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and greetings to one and all from across the globe. Personally, I'm so happy to be here amongst you global citizens. How lovely it is to see people from all over the world. Today, we have registrants from 18 unique countries: Mexico, India, Canada, Nepal, Singapore, Bangladesh, US, Taiwan, Indonesia, Peru, Bolivia, Philippines, Guatemala, Paraguay, Nicaragua, Sri Lanka, Sweden, and the UK. I really hope I haven't missed any other country. If some people have joined, I would like to acknowledge them at this moment. Well, Pathway School Gurgaon is excited to be associated with Ecothon 2021, an initiative of our very own student, Shivi Anand, DP1 student and her friend from California, Shrey Khattar. I would like to say that why it gives me so much of pride this day, because I've personally seen Shivi over the last few years, whether it was in the middle school doing her MYP, her passion on sustainability, and being focused, driven, and passionate, in spite of the fact that, well, she was down even with COVID in the last few days. But I think the passion hasn't drowned her, and she's very much here with us. And it's good to see you, Shivi, and well done and congratulations. I'm actually inspired by you, and I'm grateful that I'm here speaking to everyone here. Ecothon is a chance for you, the passionate young people of the world, to come together and create the solutions to what is arguably the biggest challenge faced by humanity in today's time. And I can simply put it that it is an environmental catastrophe. Well, what do we do about it? Sustainability is very close to our hearts at Pathway School Gurgaon. And of course, to Shivi, and I'm sure to all of you who are here, including Shrey. As an educational institution, we feel it is our responsibility to sensitize young minds towards nature and its importance. Hence, our support for this important event. Well, if I look at it from another point of view, it's also lending and giving agency to our students to do what they feel so passionately about. And this is an evidence of the same. At Pathways, we utilize several architectural techniques to reduce our carbon footprint and overall environmental impact. Interestingly, all our solutions are very simple, yet game-changing. Given our geographical setting, the city of Gurgaon, a humid subtropical climate with extremely hot summers and fairly wet monsoons, Pathways School's focus has been maximizing energy efficiency, using horticulture to all our advantage, and managing water in the least wasteful manner. As an example, for insulation, we have high ceilings to allow hot air to travel up and cool the classrooms. Double glazed argon-filled windows to minimize conduction of heat from the sun into the rooms. The Pathway Schools chain is certified as LEED EB Platinum. Having said that, We're also an accredited school within YASC, and the Learning Principle 9, which really deals with spaces, adds so much value to the sustainability here. So how can we live and function more sustainably? How can we integrate minimally, environmentally impactful systems into our infrastructure? Be them homes, schools, or offices. Today, our focus is eco-centric housing. You will be exploring solutions to sustainable residential living. And if I have to say one word, I think each one of you are designers here. So as an educationist, I believe in students' power in making a difference in the world. And I think that's so well said and captured by the IB mission and by our Pathways vision statement, which says that we build on a thinking, learning community to make a difference in this world. And I see Ecothon 2021 as a powerful means to this end. You are our future leaders in science, the global environmental movement, and social justice. I hope you make the most of this opportunity, make friends, create solutions, think hard, collaborate well, enjoy your time, and also I would like to invite you to Gurgaon, to our school, Pathway School Gurgaon, and I'm sure Shibi would love to host you all here in our school here. My best wishes to all of you, and God bless you, and congratulations for a great Ecothon 2021. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Captain Bajaj. We really appreciate it, and that meant so much to us. Thank you. So once again, welcome to Ecothon 2021. We are very excited to have you, and we will begin shortly after we've introduced the event. We've introduced how it's going to go, a bit about me and Shrey and what we've been doing so far and what we plan to do after the event. So today we have participants from 18 countries from around the world, and we're very, very excited and very honored to have all of you here. This is a map that shows where we're all from. And before I hand over to Shrey, I just want to talk a bit about myself. The reason I'm here today, a part of Ecothon 2021, is it started with my obsession with tiny houses. Back in 7th grade, I came across these videos on tiny houses and basically sustainable living. But tiny houses essentially were the primary aim of the tiny house movement was to cut costs and for people to live in smaller shelters more minimally. But what I found by watching videos is that the byproduct was that they're also living a very eco-friendly lifestyle. And that's what hooked me on to the tiny house movement. And I started binge watching videos on YouTube. And for years, since 7th grade, I wanted to build my own tiny house. So when I joined Shrey earlier in 2020, the second half of 2020, in his project on plaster bricks, which he will talk about soon, I wanted to build my model. And I thought I could use that opportunity as to build my own tiny house model as his pilot project. And then our project evolved a lot, and finally we're here today. We're going to be talking about why we're doing an online hackathon for teenagers and what we plan to do after this. But yeah, just generally, I'm really interested in sustainability. I plan to study it in university, and I'm very excited to be here. Thank you. On to Shrey.
Thank you for that, Shivi. Yeah, I think what you said really encapsulates what we have been trying to do and what we want to do. And again, we are so grateful for all of you that have shown up and show that you're really willing to begin thinking, innovating, and tackling these important problems that we face. So before we were planning and running Ecothon, me and Shivi actually have been working on a project on our own related to sustainable housing that we started, well, I started around 1.5 years ago. So around the summer of 2019, and Shivi joined around a year later, so in the summer of 2020. And it's evolved a lot, and we've gone through several changes. We've done a lot of research, experiments, and tried to create several solutions. But where we are right now is that we are trying to create bricks made from plastic, recycled plastic, waste plastic, using a mold and a process called extrusion, where you heat the bricks and then you compress them. And we want to build structures based off that. This has been done before with just plastic that's pre-sorted, and it's been known to work. And we want to do it with waste plastic all around the world. So I will screen share now some pictures of kind of examples of what we've been doing in this process. So here, Shivi, can you see this?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so at the very beginning, we were, this is a hydraulic press I was using actually. I used one in my own garage that I was using to kind of create smaller bricks out of plastic, which kind of like this size, like maybe 4 or 5 times smaller than what an actual brick would be, but out of waste plastic. As you can see, the first one was when I was experimenting with reinforcing this plastic with agricultural fibers. And I was running tests, like as you can see in the second picture, where the hydraulic press, which is basically it's a hand lever, and the force goes down on this rod. It was bending this brick. Obviously, this brick was maybe not the best brick I had made because it was being bent pretty easily. But yeah, these were the types of things I was doing at the beginning, as I was just trying to find different formulas of plastic and other materials that would really make strong building material. That was my original interest. And then I joined with Shivi, and we started to think bigger. How could we make full-size bricks? How could we expand this to make bricks that we could actually make structures with maybe this summer when I go to India and me and Shivi will work together. So here you can see parts for a mold that we had someone I know who works with metal and other materials make a mold for us, and here are all the parts of that mold. And this is a full-size mold. As you can see here, this is the finished mold that we've been working with to make full-size bricks out of waste plastic. And we're really excited about this because these bricks are very strong, and we'll be able to connect them together in a concept called interlocking bricks, similar to cement bricks, but you also have steel rods going through them to reinforce. Yeah, and we really want to make what Shivi was referring to as a tiny house, basically a small structure which could theoretically be inhabitable or be used for some other purpose. So that's where we are right now. And as to why I specifically started Ecothon and I wanted to start Ecothon with Shivi was that we were making these bricks and we were exploring ideas like this, but I felt like we could expand. We could maybe incorporate more ideas. We could start experimenting with other facets of ecological design. And Shivi, when she joined, had already kind of expanded that. So I'm very grateful to her for that. But then we started Ecothon because we wanted to get these ideas from like-minded high schoolers and students from around the world, like us, that are really interested in making a change and in designing solutions like we've been doing with this environmental eco brick structure that will really help us, and then also to work with these people in the future, maybe to actually incorporate these ideas. So what I'm trying to say is that not only did we create this event to just expand the horizons of what we think of what the ideas we want to use, but we also want to work with you all if you can after this event with kind of doing more research on these ideas, maybe actually implementing these ideas. And we'll talk about that at the end with something that we call the 6-month design lab. Yeah, so I think Shivi, you want to run through the schedule and kind of what teams will be expected to do now.
Yeah, thank you, sure. So let me start with the schedule. Is it visible? Okay.
Yes.
So the 4 infographics that we have for you, all of them have been sent on the general chat on Slack. This is, the first one is about the schedule. So all timings are in GMT. On both days, today and tomorrow, the event is from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. GMT. Today, we will have a speaker session with Dr. Bailey. She's a professor of engineering and social justice at the University of San Diego. Then we will do some icebreaking with our teams, and you'll get to interact with the mentors. We'll have a 5-minute break, and then we start with our work session, which is the time when we'll actually be working on our ideas. We'll be discussing things. We'll be putting it on the slides template that's been shared with you already. And then between today and tomorrow, today's event and tomorrow's event, you will have time. It'll be unofficial, but you are encouraged to meet with your team and to book time with mentors that you want to meet with based on their specialization, to work further on your ideas, to consolidate them, and to present them nicely in a Google Slides presentation, the one that's already been shared with you. And to reserve time with mentors, we're going to share with you a mentor reservation spreadsheet on, it's a Google Excel sheet that will be shared with you. And of course, please organize yourselves based on time zone. There are some teams where there are people from different time zones, so please be mindful that everyone is able to meet at the times that you decide. Tomorrow, we will have an introduction. We will talk a bit more about our design lab and what we plan to do with that after this event. We will, and during that time, the judges will evaluate the presentations that they receive at 3 p.m., which is a deadline for the first round of submission. And after, at 4:30, the top 5 finalists will be announced, and from 4:30 to 5, they'll get time to prepare for their final presentation, which is live on Zoom. They'll be presenting verbally, and we're going to share our screen, and we're going to show everyone their presentation. And both rounds of judging, and I'll get into this in a bit, will be based on the rubric, solely on the rubric. We want to make it as fair as possible, and all mentors will be judging. Tomorrow, while the top 5 finalist teams are preparing for the presentation, the rest of us are going to attend another speaker session, which will be a TED Talk by Dan Phillips, another very interesting person. And then we will have the finalist presentations. All of us can ask questions during that time. And after that, we're going to have some fun. We're going to wait for the judges to evaluate the top 5 finalists. And during that time, the rest of us are going to have fun. And after that, once the winners are announced, we're going to have an after party. So definitely stay for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah. And now on to the judging process. So the first round is, as I mentioned, a submission of your slides. So in your slides, you can include text, photographs, graphics, and you can also make a video, but that's optional. And the maximum duration for your video is 2 minutes. If you choose in your team to make a video, please upload it to YouTube and paste the link on the last slide of your Google Slides presentation. Again, I'm reiterating, the deadline for the final submission of this first round is 3 p.m. GMT, which is an hour before the second day's event starts. Then after the first round of evaluation, once the presentations have happened, we'll have the second round of evaluation, which again will be on the rubric, and I'll share the rubric with you in a second. The presentation will last 5 to 7 minutes, and after each presentation, judges will ask questions for 5 minutes. Our screen will be shared with the presentation. And again, the presentation will be judged based on the rubric. So our outcome will be 1 winning team, 2 runners-up, and 5 top 5 finalists, including the winner and the 2 runners-up. So here's the rubric, and quite honestly, for a participant who's looking to win, this is really, really important. This is what you're going to be evaluated on. We're looking at eco-friendly concepts. We're looking at design. And again, all of these documents are available on Slack. We're hoping most of us have already joined Slack. If you haven't, please check your inbox. the inbox of the email address that you signed up with. You'll find your Slack invitation there. So we're looking at eco-friendly concepts, we're looking at design, we're looking at originality, we're looking at presentation and teamwork. And all of these criteria are going to be graded out of 10. And then they're going to be, there are different weightages for each. So definitely like close read this rubric. I'm not going to get into it right now. Do it at your own time, please. Yeah. So the last thing is rewards, the most exciting part. After the event, everyone is going to be encouraged to apply to join the design lab, and the top 5 finalist teams will be invited to join. Yeah. So finally, what we aim to do is create a model that incorporates a lot of the design ideas that we're going to generate today. And we just want to make it very exploratory. We want to test out design ideas. So things like, you know, if a team comes up with an idea for installation, we want to test that out. We definitely want to test out our plasto bricks. That's that's an element that we're definitely going to have. And the rest are to be decided based on the ideas that we generate in this hackathon. And we plan to do that over 6 months. We plan to make this model over 6 months. Right now, our plan is to make one either in the US where Shrey lives or where I live in India. But eventually we see our project becoming global, and we see such models being created around the world. And that depends on our teams right now here, all of you, whether you're interested, if you want to make such a model in where you live. Yeah, and the second reward is a website feature. All of us, regardless of whether we win or not, are going to be featured on our website. Our headshots are going to be featured along with our team presentation. And additionally, everyone will get certificates, whether you're a winner or a participant. But winners and runners-up will be specially featured on the website, and they will get a winner's certificate as well. Okay. And I have a Google Slides presentation now. Okay. So the prompt. Our prompt for the event is design a self-sustaining, eco-friendly, and affordable structure for a family of 4 to 5 that uses at least in part recycled waste materials such as building materials. Focus on a minimum of 3 key areas or functional elements of a shelter that utilize an ecological design concept. And you may use a budget of $1,500 US. So the purpose of the budget. Now, the budget is something new. It was introduced, like we're only telling you about this now. So don't be alarmed. The purpose of the budget is very, very simple. It's just so that we just want to encourage you to think about cost. We want you to take that into consideration when you're designing something, when you're planning a solution out. And we want you to communicate the cost and how you've broken it down in your presentation as well. But we understand that, of course, this is not going to be like a proper final design. It is in an early stage. So we do not expect like a proper breakdown of costs. We just expect a rough but realistic estimate. And that is, of course, if you're looking to fetch a high score, because this is a part of the rubric. The rubric states for accounting for real world constraints, especially affordability, scalability. So you do not have to stick to the budget if you do not want to. You can exceed it, but it might be a good idea to mention that you are exceeding it and why and how. We also encourage you to decide on a geographical setting before you begin designing. So the reason we encourage this is because sometimes designs depend on geographical setting, especially when it comes to housing. Things like climate affect housing solutions. So in Egypt, somebody can use mud to create, there is a designer using mud to create skyscrapers because mud is a form of clay, but that's not possible everywhere. In a place where it snows, you might be able to create an igloo, but that's not possible everywhere. That's why we encourage you to decide on a geographical setting before you begin. But again, this is optional. And make sure everyone in your team agrees on this. So I mentioned earlier that we want teams to be focusing on three key areas. So examples of these are water, energy, trash, sewage, insulation, construction method, construction material, lighting, and structure. These are just some examples. You're free to go anywhere you want. Yeah, and finally, the resources available to you are, so the documents available to you are 4 infographics that have been shared on Slack. You have access to a guided team slide presentation template, which I think Shrey has already sent to all the teams separately. We will be sharing with you a mentor reservation spreadsheet on which you can select timings next to the mentor you wish to meet during the unofficial work sessions. They have already indicated times when they are free to meet. And you also have access to our website for more general information. For communication, we're using Slack primarily. So again, if you haven't joined already, an invitation has been sent to the email address with which you signed up. You can also contact us on Ecothon 2021, at gmail.com, not .org. But we would encourage you to use Slack. And you can also contact the mentors on their email or phone number, but that depends on them. So they will let you know what they're comfortable with, and they will share that information accordingly. So people you can get in touch with, of course, your mentors. You will have a mentor assigned to you. So they are your first person that you will contact. You can get in touch with other mentors if you wish to, using the mentor reservation spreadsheet. And you can always get in touch with me, with Shrey or Peter. Yeah, and now on to Shrey.
Great, thank you, Shivi. So it seems now we'll move on to our speaker event. So Dr. Bailey is here from the University of San Diego, and we are really excited and very grateful to have all of her expertise here. So the format will be, first she'll talk about some of the work she's done for 15 to 20 minutes. Then me and Shivi will do a 5 to 10 minute interview session with her. And then we will leave the floor open to questions from the audience for the last 5 to 10 minutes. So please pay attention. And if you have any questions, either send it to me or you can ask in that 5 to 10 audience question session at the end. So let me introduce Dr. Bailey. Dr. Caroline Bailey is Professor of Praxis in Engineering and Social Justice at the University of San Diego and co-founding director of the non-for-profit Waste for Life, or you can search up wasteforlife.org for their website, which supports vulnerable communities in the development of upcycled waste-based businesses. She also runs a forest school for children and a forest school professional development program for teachers. Dr. Bailey's research considers socio-technical processes and systems which enhance social and environmental justice in educational systems that promote these. She brings lessons learned from these studies and practices into the classroom of all ages to facilitate the transformation of a more equitable and just future. Professor Bailey has published 27 scholarly books, an edited series of books on engineers, technology, and society, and over 200 book chapters, peer-reviewed journal, and conference papers. So without further ado, welcome Dr. Bailey. If you want to introduce yourselves, introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Shrey and Shivi, and it's just a delight to be here because I know that Shrey you've been communicating with me 2 years now. I'm not sure. It's been a while, so it's all developed, and I'm honored to be here today. Really honored. I've been very excited to see the developments, and I've certainly contacted people all over the world. I'm not sure if any of them have been able to come. So Shrey, would you like me to go ahead with the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. Does everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so what I thought I'd do is take you through the way we work and some of the places we've worked. So I'm going to do that through photographs to give you an idea. And first of all, the title, Upcycling into Composites for Zero Waste and Poverty Reduction. We've always worked with social and environmental justice hand in hand. So it's not just about waste recycling. It's not just about running an organization that makes money for ourselves at all. We're a not-for-profit organization in Waste for Life. And we don't actually even pay ourselves. But the idea is to support poverty reduction by helping organizations create businesses from the waste they collect. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about how that all started. So I'm a professor of engineering, and I have been for almost 30 years, and I'm a materials engineer. So that means, I study and work with plastics and other, materials, which we know are a problem. And when I was at university, I did not learn about recycling, let me tell you. And so we find out we're creating these tens of thousands of different kinds of plastics all the time, and there's nowhere for them to go at the end of life. So I started working on green materials. And then I decided that I wanted to work more in social justice. And so I asked myself the question, how can I share my knowledge with people that don't normally get access to that knowledge? How can I, as a materials engineer and professor and all that privilege that comes with that, how can I share that with people who don't get to go to university, or perhaps don't get to go into industry and know what technology exists? And I happened to be taken to Cairo, to a place called Ecothon, where many thousands of people live on a rubbish dump at the edge of the city of Cairo, and basically recycle the city's waste for them. They're like little angels, except they live in the most disgusting conditions. And I met some of the families, and they said to me, if we know a little bit more about how to manufacture these materials from waste, we could make more money. And I found out that if they learned how to separate plastics from polyethylene or polypropylene, and they knew the difference, they could make 3 times as much money. So that makes the difference between perhaps $200 a month and $600 a month. It means 3 children can have food as opposed to perhaps 2. So what we want to do is try and share that knowledge. What did that look like? So I'm going to take you through the story of how I tried to work with communities that might benefit from that kind of knowledge. So, excuse me. So one of the first places that we went to was Lesotho in Africa. Now, my student was from there, a PhD student, and he told me that their country really needed housing materials, and also he told me about the kinds of problems that they have with waste. So this was just a dump site. They just throw it on the land and burn it. And so his family actually explained to me how they used to make baskets from agave, which is the same kind of material that you might be familiar with, and that comes from Mexico and other areas as well. And they told me that you make this fiber for baskets, but they don't do that anymore. What they do is they make the juice. They take the juice out of it to make a kind of skin cream, a bit like aloe gel, and they throw away the fiber. So I thought, well, that's interesting. They have that technology of getting the fiber. Maybe they could use both materials. So we worked out how to join together the fiber and the plastic that was just thrown around all over the place. And we turned it into a tile like this. And what they wanted it for was to insulate their houses. So they have these tin roofs, which are incredibly hot in the summer and very cold in the winter. The steam from the cooking would condense on the roof, and it would drop right back down into the house. And so they needed insulation. And these ceiling tiles that we could create would be made from locally found waste materials and insulate their houses. So this is where Waste for Life began. Our next adventure was in Argentina, where in 2001, they had a huge economic crisis. many of the people that lived there became poor overnight. Even people with some little savings in the banks closed, all the money disappeared. All the engineers, all of the people, the professionals left the country. And there were many people just left behind scavenging to try to make a living. And many of them worked on the streets, picking up garbage. And they would separate that garbage into the different materials and try to sell it and get money for it. And so we went down there and tried to see whether it might be possible to help them turn that waste that they collected into products so that they could actually enter the manufacturing stream rather than just be scavengers where they sold their plastics to a middle person who would not give them very much money. So if they were ready to move on to manufacturing, we helped them. And this shows the chopped up materials that you can put into the molds that we use. And you can recycle anything that has a plastic, which is a thermoplastic, for those of you who study chemistry, that it can be melted and reformed. So polyethylene, polypropylene, these are good examples. And the reason that they're good is because they don't have any nasty toxicity. So we don't work with polystyrene or PVC, for example, but polyethylene and polypropylene. And then what we do is we upcycle it. We make it stronger by adding to the plastic something that reinforces it, much like fiberglass or graphite carbon tennis rackets or speedboats that are made of carbon fiber. They're actually plastic reinforced with a fiber. So we took that technology, which is called a composite material, and we actually use whatever it is in the neighborhood of whatever country that is in the waste stream that could upcycle the plastic. So it could be paper or cardboard or old clothing, textile fabric, or it could be in agricultural areas, flax or hemp, or it could be sugarcane. And there's plenty of examples, of rice husk even. And so in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, we were working with fabric and cardboard because it was a city context. And we had to develop a machine that was very low cost. Now, the materials process that you go through is very simple. It's called hot pressing or compression molding. But the machines that you use are very expensive. They use a hydraulic system. They're very powerful. And even the university laboratory equipment is perhaps $100,000 or $200,000. And the industrial equipment maybe 10 times that. So how were these communities going to afford that equipment? So a lot of the innovation in our work came from developing low-cost solutions to these kind of technologies. And one of our team designed a very simple version of a hot press that could be built for perhaps $1,000 or $2,000, depending on the labor charges in the country. And this is an example of our very early prototype. This was the second prototype, which had a lever, a pulley system, because the ladies who worked with it told us they couldn't manage the weight. And what this system works with is it has two hot plates above and below, and between those two blue things there, which heat up the material. And then underneath you can see basically a truck jack, something that you pump up to get the tires off a truck or a car, which helps with a lever system to give us an enormous pressure that normally you have to have using the hydraulic press. And so you get heat and pressure. And with these two alone, with no chemicals at all, we can turn the materials into a product. And some of the early designs that were created, and we've had lots and lots of students over the years help us. This was a very simple wallet design, which actually the wallets are still going today, 10 years later, that have been made, 15 years later, I should say, and bags and other domestic products, as well as this example in Argentina, which is a trash can, which was interestingly put into the eco parks, which were regenerated landfills. And that, as you can see, is made up with just plastic waste. reinforced with paper. And you know, you can make some beautiful designs depending on your choices of the colors and so on in the waste stream. Moving geographically on, this is the project that we did in Sri Lanka. And what we had there were a different group of people, additionally marginalized, living in the northern part of Sri Lanka in Jaffna. And they'd just come out of a 30-year civil war. And a lot of the people up there are incredibly impoverished, very, very poor housing, no jobs, no income. And a lot of women were left behind after their husbands were killed in the war and needed to work. And we came across one group of people who had been donated a machine to strip the fibers from the stems of banana plants once the bananas had been picked. And again, this is a waste product. And this machine stripped them and they could make baskets from that fiber. Only the baskets that they made were quite beautiful, but they would take 3 days to make them and they could charge perhaps $5 for them. So it wasn't making them very much money. So we worked with them to show them a very simple process. And with them, we used a much simpler machine. This is one that you can buy off the shelf. And they just for, you know, a small, well, depends on the country as to how much it is, but let's say it's you know, hundreds to thousands. And it's an adaptation of a t-shirt printing press. So you have the hot plate and the lower plate, which are heated. And again, it was women that told us of this idea. They said, why don't we use this for the domestic products that don't need such big pressure, because we're not making walls or ceilings, we're just making bags and wallets. And in this place, we made this beautiful material, which came from the banana fiber mixed together with plastic, and which they turned into all manner of products, books, and even we did go on to make ceiling tiles again, or this in fact was a roof. They requested if we could go back and make a roof. So this has been installed on a toilet block in Jaffna and has been there for 2 years now. And it's really withstands the weather very well. And it's also, as you can see, translucent. So it's much better than the old materials. Believe it or not, many of the charity programs that go there, such as the United Nations and others, are still paying for asbestos to be used in these buildings because it's cheap. New buildings are having asbestos put in, and as many of you will know, asbestos is carcinogenic. So instead of asbestos, they are now making their roofing out of rice husk, banana fiber, and plastic bags. And the last of our whistle-stop tour of the world before I stop, come forward to where I am geographically now. I'm working for the University of San Diego and I've been there for 4 years. And as you probably know, the Mexican border is very close. And so we work in Tijuana. So within 20 minutes, we can be with our community. And what you see there is the trash that comes down the Tijuana estuary between the two countries. And it's quite an interesting political problem because, of course, the trash that comes from the canyon communities in Tijuana ends up on Imperial Beach in San Diego. And so it's been an interesting issue for many years. And that is covered also in toxic sludge. Because often there's no sewers and so that goes straight into the river also. So cleanup is a nightmare. So we've been recruited by the Tijuana Estuary, TRNERR, Riverine Reserve Research Organization, to work with the communities to prevent this from happening. And so there what we're doing is we're actually working with a few different communities, including a refugee community in Los Alacran Canyon, to help the communities there learn how to turn that plastic waste, combine it with other materials, which is likely to be juice boxes and milk cartons, shredded up and to reinforce the material. And I want to just stress, we only work with those materials that end up in landfill. We don't work with the stuff that can be recycled, that can go on to become another product. We will only work with plastic film or bags. Even though there's a ban in Tijuana, there's still all manner of plastic film in the waste stream and anything else that ends up in the waste stream. But we don't usually recycle anything that can be recycled and often is by the government because that's being dealt with elsewhere. So that's all I wanted to say. And I'm very happy to be here and answer your questions. And I'm so excited if we can help in any way with your project.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bailey. That was it's really an enlightening talk, and I'm sure that all of our participants learned so much. So right now, for maybe 5 minutes, a little longer, Shivi and I will ask you some questions that we think will be useful to the audience, and then we'll open it up for everyone in the audience to ask you questions either directly or they can chat it to me, Shivi, or Peter. So if you want to begin thinking of questions right now for everyone in the audience, please feel free to. But first, I'll start it off with the first question is, in general, what advice do you have for young researchers, scientists, and environmentalists?
In general, follow people like Shrey and Shivi who get up and do something about it. Because, you know, I'm afraid that my generation have ruined the planet, the ones before us. I'm afraid that we have created all the waste. We haven't questioned, well, my generation started to think about it, but older than me and beyond, we just have spent a lot of time damaging the planet. And I think it's really great that the younger generations can question that and come in. And particularly with the pandemic, we realized that we are causing ill health as well to ourselves and to our planet. So I think it's important to have the courage of your convictions. And if people say no to you, just keep going. One of the things that I always share with my students about enhancing their creative potential. If you've got a really good idea, share it with somebody nice. Because if you're going out to show them and say, Shrey, what do you think about this idea? Shrey's likely to say, I think that's a great idea. That's really good. But I can name a lot of my colleagues at my workplace who would say, that's not going to work. Why would you do that? And then I won't go any further. So have the courage of your convictions, share your good ideas with people that are going to help you build those ideas, because we need answers and we need answers now. And they're transdisciplinary. That means they're cross disciplines. That means don't go study something at university and never talk to anybody from anywhere else. We have the future needs for us to be working across disciplines. The world does not know disciplinary boundaries. The world's problems are not defined in that way. That was my answer.
I think I could relate a little bit when you talked about talking to somebody nice, because I think when an idea is still at a nascent stage, it's a little bit hard to communicate, and sometimes you need a lot of discussion to get it out. And I think that's what Trey and I had to do a lot. But I think our mentors and Peter, of course, helped us a lot with that. So thank you. I have another question for you. What role should governments play, for example, through policies and subsidies, in addressing the issue of recycling waste for reuse?
Yeah, that's a good one. What should they do? Gosh, if I were running the country, yeah, there does need to be a policy shift. I think it has a massive role to play, and I can give you a couple of examples. So when I'm from England, as you may be able to tell, and when I was in England, in my early years of my career, and we would get funding from the European Commission and the time that we belonged to Europe. One of the things that was really important was that we had something called landfill tax. And so all of the companies in the UK and well, across Europe, all of the companies had to pay this hefty landfill tax to the government if their product would ultimately end up in landfill. And what this did was it released a lot of money, because that landfill tax was then used to fund projects that the companies and other people could apply to work out, well, how can I recycle my product? What does that look like? They didn't just leave them to do it by themselves. They actually paid that money back. And so I was part of the research teams that would get some of that funding. And we ended up creating what are now known as natural fiber composites, which is the precursor of my work in Waste for Life. And when I arrived in the North American continent for a position in the early 2000s, nobody had heard of this research in North America. They were all really, excited by it, and they wanted to know all about it, but they were 20 years behind because there was no such policy in North America, and particularly in the US. And so that research has only just been catching up now. And so, and you see that obviously in the products and in the cars that get produced in Europe that have that kind of material in them versus the metal that you see in most of the cars. So I think that policy makes a massive difference, particularly to prevent corporations from doing the kind of damage they've been doing.
Thank you. Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think we can all agree that governments probably should do more with addressing a lot of these problems with the environment. But I'm gonna ask one more question, then we'll open it up to all participants. You've mentioned and you do work in areas of social justice as well as with a lot of the engineering work you do. So in your opinion, what do people not know about how social justice can be relevant to engineering, and how do you kind of tie those two in together?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I first arrived in Canada in that period I mentioned, I think it was 2003, and I was shocked by all these people coming and trying to give me money to do natural fiber composite work. And some of them, I didn't agree with their policies. I didn't, for example, agree with turning crops into genetically modified plants that would turn into cars and replace all the food that they were growing instead. There were many people that were offering me money that I just didn't agree with their principles. And people were saying to me, well, why wouldn't you do that? Of course, engineers make a profit. That's what they do. They should just make a profit. And I remember one person at a conference telling me that everything that you do, you have to prove why it's a financial benefit. So this was a conference on natural fibers, and they were talking about flax and the benefits of flax on health and how it prevents heart attacks. And somehow they turned that into a number for the government and said, and it will save them this much money on their budget. And I said, can you not just stop with it saves lives? Is that not enough of a goal? And I was so shocked that we had to turn everything into a profit. I'd grown up in England where engineering was a service to humanity. We built bridges, roads, water, gas, everything was nationalized. It wasn't owned by corporations, and therefore it didn't equate engineering to profit making. It didn't make sense to me, does not compute. So here I am faced with this question of why, of course, Bailey, turn it into a profit. Are you dumb? And I didn't understand. So I started asking people from all different places across the country, from political science and sociology. I started asking community members, well, what if we put people first instead of profit? What happens? Do we do different engineering? Do we engineer different things? Would our world look different? And I found out that yes, it would. So then I started the organization Engineering Social Justice and Peace, and I would love for as many of you as possible to come. We've got a conference this June and hosted by the University of Los Andes in Colombia. It's free to attend, and we'd love high schoolers there. And basically it's a community of people that have since then started to question this paradigm and work out whether it was possible to be socially just and do engineering. And of course, it goes into many different areas, those which I've spoken of today, but also, for example, my work in the impact of mining. And so I will work with communities who are impacted by mining and who have absolutely no voice and who are not able to help the company understand that their livelihoods are ruined, that the health of their kids is damaged, et cetera, et cetera. And so, I think in all different engineering areas, there's a different way of thinking about it. Workers in factories who are in supply chains where they work in horrific conditions in Bangladesh, and some company in America buys the parts and they do not understand that that's not ethical. So there are many parts to this. And of course, there's racial injustices that come in very strongly too. So yeah, it's an exploring and exploding kind of new way of thinking about things. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about it to anybody who wants to hear.
Thank you. So I have a question from a participant. What factors should my team consider when assessing the eco-impact of our ideas? In your experience.
What factors should they consider? Excuse me. That's a very good question. And I think my favorite answer to that comes from a woman called Ursula Franklin, who was, because she died just a few years ago in her 90s, and a professor from the University of Toronto and somebody who cared very much about the impact of technology on society. And she wrote a book which was based on a series of talks she gave called The Real World of Technology. And the best premise that I get from that book is that she questions who benefits and who pays when you create or design something. So instead of the standard triple bottom line that you've probably all heard about, economics, environment, society, let's look at who pays and who benefits in each of those areas. So economics does not just become, how can we make a profit whilst making sure we don't harm people or the planet? Let's consider the environmental impacts and the social impacts and the economic impacts on a whole range of stakeholders, not just the user, not just the company that produces it. So if you're creating social housing or if you're creating housing, think about where the materials come from. Think about the impact of all of those materials. Think about the energy used to bring the materials to where you are. Think about if this goes into mass production, where that would get produced and who's going to be impacted. So I would ask the question of who next to all of your concerns. That's the short answer.
Okay, thank you so much. We have a question from one of our participants, Dhruv Goyal. How do we determine the prices of the material so that our eco-friendly infrastructure is within the required budget?
So I don't know how you can price things very easily in your part of the world. That may be a difficult question for me to answer, but one thing I can answer, one website which I think would be worth going to, venturewell.org. VentureWell is an organization which supports design projects, and it might be worth looking at in the future for funding as well. And they have an absolutely incredible set of resources on ecological design, sustainable design on their website. And they have a lot of databases, a huge number of databases that you can tap into. You can do life cycle assessment, cradle to cradle analysis. And I don't know about cost, it may be in there, but some of those links will certainly be really, really helpful to you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. We have a question from Arzu. Through your work, how did you change the local economic systems that have been imposed for so long, and have therefore become part of the culture of wherever you were doing a project?
Oh, if I could. Oh, if I only could change the economic system, that would be marvelous. We work I like this idea from a guy who's sadly just passed away called Olin Wright. And he talked about interstitial change. And being a materials engineer, it's kind of appealing to think about this. What is the little grain of sand that is going to disrupt the system? Or what is the little sand in the oyster that's going to create the pearl? How can you cleave open a rock by putting some other salt solution in there that somehow this rock just cleaves open as opposed to banging away at it with a hammer? We tend to kind of create little moments of examples of what it might look like to behave in a socially just way. Often for the communities we work with, they become independent or autonomous from corrupt governments or corporations who might exploit them. And so they become citizens who are contributing to society, but they're no longer dependent upon systems which might behold them to values that they don't agree with or might treat them badly. And if one shares enough of these around, then I believe we can, have more and more examples to people like you growing up and creating these kinds of ways of acting. So cooperatives where communities share the proceeds amongst themselves. When I asked one of the organizers of a recycling group in Argentina how they decided how to hire people, they said, well, that's a funny question. What do you mean? And I said, well, you've got a lot of people here who need to work. Who do you take on? And he said, well, the person with the biggest number of children, of course, which is completely opposite to what we would do. Those of us with more children are much more, especially women, are much more likely to, well, they've got too many children, they couldn't possibly concentrate on this work. So, instead of like a resume with like 16 degrees. So I think it's really important to kind of look at these alternative ways of being and knowing and practicing and share them around as much as possible.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. Again, all participants, if you have a question for Dr. Bailey, just feel free to unmute and ask it right now if you want, or chat it.
Yeah, Eric Olin, right, exactly, Peter, thank you. Real Utopias was the name of the paper that I was talking about just then, Real Utopias. I'm not reading the chat. Am I supposed to be?
No. We'll
I was in private messages there, but I haven't been able to pick them up. What factors should teams consider? Oh, that you've already told me those. Okay. All right. So I would love to hear some ideas that you have already. You've been working since last night. Is that correct?
No, we actually are kind of beginning, like after your speaker event, then it'll start working.
Oh, just getting going. Okay. So one of the things that, in terms of the direct application of what I was talking about, the materials for the housing, one of the things that we're a little bit stuck with, and I could do with some help on, is that it has to be safe, and fire is a really big issue. Okay, so we need to work with people who understand about fire safety code. In different countries, they have different codes, but that doesn't matter. You ought to do it to the highest safety code. I don't know if you know about a block of towers that was burned to the ground in England because polyethylene was in the walls. So polyethylene is a nasty material. It's flammable. It's a petroleum product. And so if we're making panels or ceiling tiles or anything like that, we need to be making them fire resistant. And so we have done that in the Sri Lankan tiles, but I think we need to be even more vigilant in areas where there might be cooking or in very big buildings. So I just want you to be aware of that, so that not all the answers have been solved at all. It's an ongoing research. So I'd love it if any of you have contacts or could help us with that one. That would be great. I think you've got another question there from Javier.
Yeah. So as a designer, I love composites, but they are often challenging to recycle because thermoplastics can be reformed with temperature and pressure. Is it possible to repress your composites with the fiber still embedded in the plastic? Thank you for the question, Javier.
Thank you for that question. Yeah, it is one of the awful things with composites, and why I have a PhD in composite materials. It's so hard when you learn these things and you think, oh, why didn't I think of that at the time? But yeah, you're encasing one material in another. It's the most horrible thing to do ecologically, and you cannot recycle them in traditional ways, but our process you can. So in an ideal world, we ought to have a buyback system where the community can buy back any of the products. And in fact, the Sri Lankan products have a little thing on them that say, when you have finished using this, please give it to someone else to use, and so on. But after the end of that, please give it back to us. If it's not a product that's going to be distributed, miles away, then that's likely to be okay. But until such time as lots of people are doing the process that we're doing, then chances are it would end up in a landfill, which is not good. So we would always try and have that caveat with, if you buy this product, you got to promise to be responsible about bringing it back to us at the end. And so the way that it works, yes, you can chop up the fibers, the plastic, you can chop up anything, which is why we can recycle Tetra Pak, which is the material that you make juice containers, which is a composite of, thin foil, cardboard, plastic. And the reason you can't put that in a recycling bin is because the current recycling processes will not accept mixtures of materials, as you say. But we can, so long as it can be chopped up and in itself be a particulate or a fiber to reinforce the plastic. You can just keep recycling it and recycling it.
Great, thank you so much. Seems we have another question. Thank you for all these great questions, everyone. Your examples don't mention the use of chemical catalysts, either synthetically created or naturally found in nature, such as papaya, to accelerate the transformation of waste into consumer materials. What might be explored in the use of such catalysts in upcycling?
So papaya, what does papaya do, Peter? Oh, you can speak. She could speak. I'm not aware of the effect of papaya. It breaks down protein. I thank you. Okay.
Yeah, it's something people buy for cooking. It's a natural enzyme from the papaya enzyme, from the plant, and that breaks down tough meat into much tender meat. So it's a protein digester. And it comes in papaya. So I was wondering, because you mentioned the strength of your upcycling process based purely on pressure and heat. What if you added some catalyst to that? Would that help the process, or maybe make new materials heretofore unavailable from pressure and heat alone?
Yeah. Well, interestingly, my background and for many years I did research in interfaces. So the interface between the matrix or the plastic and the fiber or the reinforcing material. And we would certainly do any number of things, mechanical adhesion, sort of roughen it up a bit, or a chemical that you would add, or a treatment process that you would add. And the reason that we don't go that route, and I have no doubt that there would be some natural ways that wouldn't be chemically harmful to the communities, is largely cost and availability, and also training. So what we try to do is work with very, very simple methods that can be learned by communities with absolutely, perhaps only elementary education. And they don't need to have specialized equipment at all. Very, very kind of dirty, easy technology but that still end up with absolutely beautiful products. So our interfaces are only, you know, induced by heat and pressure that so far. If there was a catalyst that we could use, or an adhesive or something that we could use to help, that was simple just to spray on or to add, that was not either hazardous to health or the environment or cost, or and was easy to find in the location, then we would definitely apply it. So all ideas welcome.
Great. I think we are running out of time now, and I think we've addressed most questions. But so thank you again, Dr. Bailey, so much for this amazing presentation. Also, all the great responses to the questions that our participants had and me and Shivi had. If you want, you're welcome to stay and kind of observe how teams are working and what the process is. But again, thank you so much for all of the great advice that you've given to all of us.
Thank you. I really appreciate being here. I just love what you're doing. I think it's fabulous. And please keep me informed. We have at university something called the Engineering Exchange for Social Justice, which is a framework of exchange. And the idea is that we're all co-creating things together across disciplines and across sectors. And so we would love to stay in touch with you, and hopefully, you know, some of your ideas, if you come up with a housing design, we would love to work with you, because we're working with refugee communities in Tijuana that could apply that design. So just keep in touch. We would love to have you as part of our network in all the other work we're doing in waste. I've put in the chat esjp.org. That's the name of the Engineering, Social Justice and Peace network that is hosting the conference. If you connect there or you connect with me, I can put you in touch with the conference organizers. I'll put my email address on here as well. And venturewell.org are the other ones that I mentioned, which has the great tools, the design tools and sustainability tools and life cycle analysis and so on. You can go crazy with it. They also have asknature.org. Do you know that one? This is so cool. Yes. Asknature.org, right?
Biomimicry.
Yeah, biomimicry. It's beautiful. So you must like, how does nature provide shelter? And you get all sorts of gorgeous ideas from there. There's no gap, just asknature.org. Well, thank you so much. Good luck. I can't stay around. I have to get my second vaccination jab in about an hour.
Great,
so.
Great.
Yes.
Well, Dr. Bailey, in a few months, I'll organize a group of young people to come visit you. I'm based in Los Angeles, only 2 hours away. Once we've all been vaccinated, we'll come meet you and maybe see what you do in Tijuana.
That would be beautiful. I would love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Really
Thank you once again.
Everybody. Good luck.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, so yeah, I hope you guys all had an opportunity to kind of absorb what Dr. Bailey was saying. She's again a really great person in this field, and she has so much experience. And please, if you want to reach out to her, if just in general to ask questions or with some of your ideas, feel free. She's left her email in the chat.
Shrey, can I say a few things?
Yeah, sure.
So I am so honored to have Dr. Bailey speak to us and share with us not just the nature of what she has done and what she was doing, but to give us a role model of a humanitarian engineer, which is a very powerful combination. Engineering already by its very nature is very noble, because engineers by design, by definition, solve other people's problems. But to have, besides that skill set, the mindset of a social justice humanitarian, and Dr. Bailey is absolutely tremendous. She's someone that I encourage all of you to research, look up what she's done on her website. And really, I live only 2 hours away from her. And I would love to be able to organize a group of young people who can, after the vaccination has been widespread, to come join me in visiting her in person at University of San Diego, and maybe accompanying her and her team to see what they're doing in Tijuana, which is only like half an hour away from where her school is. So if you're interested, stay in touch with Shivi and Shrey and also me, because you may not know this, but about 10 years ago, Javier, one of the mentors for the event, and I reached out to her on this very issue 10 years ago. So we would love to finally meet her in person. Back then, she was working, I think she was based in Perth, Australia, and she was working with a group in RISD, the Rhode Island School of Design, with the Kingston Press. So I'm definitely going to work with Javier to go see her in person. So if any of you want to join us, find your way to San Diego with us.
Yeah, for sure. I know that I can definitely at like any time since I live in Northern California can come down there. But yes, please do go do some more research on her or read some of her articles. They really are amazing. Watch some videos and reach out to her if you want to. But now we are going to begin the actual process of going into breakout rooms with teams which Peter will have assigned you to. Some of you have signed up with pre-assigned teams, 4 to 5 people or 4 to 6 people, and we'll put you in a breakout room. And some of you wanted to work alone, or not work alone, but work with a randomly assigned team. So we've tried to pair everyone up with a well-rounded team from around the world, so you can really get to meet and experience new perspectives. And yeah, Peter, quickly, do you want to run through the icebreaking activity that teams should be doing for the next 10, 15 minutes?
Yes. So in a few moments, you will be automatically transported to your respective breakout rooms. And the first thing to do is to go to your team slide template, which you should have received in your email inbox. This template is your one document to go to read about the directions you should follow, the rubric you should abide by, and also it is in this document that you will share your team's solution on which your team will be judged. So just remember, this slide document is the one document you need to pay attention to, because all the judges, which are the mentors, all the judges will have visibility into your slide presentation. So all you have to do is to be complete in your team solution by 3 p.m. GMT, March 28th. Once you're done, don't do anything else. The judges will go into your slide and view them. So for the first activity, which is an icebreaker, which in particular would be relevant to those teams who, with team members who may not know each other, is to make your team mascot. A mascot is usually a living creature, usually an animal, sometimes a plant, but usually an animal that somehow reflects something about your team. So in the US, sports is a big business. And so most sports teams have some animal to represent their team. Like for example, Los Angeles has the Rams as an animal, and Chicago has the Bears for the animal for the football team. So in your respective team, make your mascot, make this fictitious creature that somehow reflects your team. But you're going to do it in a very interesting way. In your slide deck, if you look at slide number 5, Shrey, can you go to slide number 5? You see on the perimeter of that slide number 5, you have many different body parts of an animal. So feel free to move them about and create your own fictitious animal. And also, you're welcome to go to Google and import another body part that maybe you want to use that's is missing from this slide. And you'll do this making our mascot activity in 2 stages. The first stage, no talking by anyone, completely silent. You simply all work on slide 5 together, and collectively, almost telepathically, without saying a thing, you're going to collectively build this mascot. One rule is you may only add to your mascot. You may not undo what someone else has done. So you may not erase or move away a body part that they've moved. You can only add. After you've done that silent phase for about 3 minutes, then you can begin talking about your collectively created mascot and discuss what is about this mascot reflects something about you, about your team. That means you'll get to know a bit about your team. Who are you? What's your home city? What's your favorite hobby? And then you can make modifications to your team mascot. And then someone in your team takes a screenshot of your team mascot and posts that on your slide 3, which, Shrey, can you move up to slide 3? Is it the introductory slide where you put down your team's number, your team's mascot name, a post of your screenshot of your mascot, and also your team member names. So within a few minutes after you are transported to your breakout rooms, you will have a mentor that'll drop in and make sure that you're off to a good start. Back to you, Shrey.
Yeah, again, these presentations for your teams should be in your inbox. We send an email to every team, and teams that for some reason or the other had to have been combined, we will also like aid you in just letting you know what presentation to use, and we'll delete the other presentation. So, but again, pre-assigned teams that are here will be in their own breakout rooms. So unless Shivi, is there anything you want to add before we start this?
No, I think we're good to go.
In that case, I am going to open up the breakout rooms